Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. And today, we are looking at some notes
Okay.
from a listener who was interested in starting a podcast about sex and relationships.
Interesting.
And they've sent us over some of their brainstorming about their potential structure for the podcast,
Yeah.
some of their episode themes, some sample episode ideas, and even some potential titles.
That's fantastic.
And I gotta say, I am really liking some of these titles they've come up with.
Yeah. What are some of your favorites?
Well, let's see here. Desire Deep Dive, Sexual Insights,
Those are good.
The Passion Project,
Ooh. Yeah,
Love, Lust, and Learning. That one has a nice ring to it, don't you think?
it does.
But let's not get too ahead of ourselves, because before we start thinking about titles,
Right.
we really need to think about, the meat of the podcast,
Hmm.
the actual structure and the content.
Well, and good branding can come later. Once you really solidify what the actual podcast is
Exactly.
going to be about.
So let's jump into that. Let's start with their proposed podcast structure.
That's right.
It's intro, main topic, guest interview, listener stories and questions, resources and recommendations, and conclusion.
You know, it's interesting because they've actually intuitively landed on a really classic
Yeah.
podcast structure.
That's very familiar.
Which I think is a good thing because you want listeners to feel comfortable
Yeah.
and to understand how the podcast is going to flow.
Exactly. Having that familiarity, I think, can really help people get into the content. And you know what I'm really excited about in this structure is the listener stories and questions segment.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think
That can be really powerful.
it can be so powerful to hear from other people who are going through similar things
Yeah.
or have, maybe gone through things that you're going through now and have come out the other side or have, some advice to share or just even to know that you're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And to make that even more powerful, you could think about maybe even offering personalized advice or bringing in guest experts to respond to some of those questions.
Oh, that's a great idea.
You could even have themed call-in episodes focusing on specific challenges or topics.
I love that. Now let's move on to the potential episode themes.
Okay.
So they've brainstormed a few here. Sexual wellness, communication and relationships, exploring fantasies and desires, understanding sexual orientation and gender identity, cultural perspectives on sex, and sexual consent.
I mean, this is a really great range of topics. It hits on a lot of really key areas.
It does.
And I think it would cater to a wide range of interests
Yes.
and needs within their potential audience.
Now, I am really interested in this exploring fantasies and desires theme because I think there's
Well, me too.
so much there to unpack.
It's kind of mysterious and taboo.
It is. It's like this realm of self-discovery and pushing boundaries, and I think it can be really fascinating to explore.
Absolutely.
What about you? Is there a particular theme that speaks to you?
Cultural perspectives on sex really jumps out at me.
Oh, interesting.
And-
Tell me more.
Well, I think it offers such a rich tapestry of anthropology, sociology, and history, You could explore how different cultures have viewed sexuality across time,
Yeah.
from ancient rituals to modern online dating trends. It would be a fascinating journey.
I'm already hooked.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of bringing in different perspectives,
Yes.
the listener mentioned wanting to incorporate guest interviews,
I think that's such a valuable addition to any podcast.
and in this space particularly,
Especially in a space like this.
to have, sex educators, therapists, authors, diversity advocates. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You could have so many fascinating guests.
Absolutely, because, those experts can share their knowledge and insights.
Yes.
But I think equally importantly, their personal stories
Yes.
can make these sometimes complex topics feel more relatable
Accessible.
and less intimidating for listeners.
Well, exactly. Okay, so let's have some fun with this.
Yeah.
If you could have any guest on this podcast,
Well, that's a tough one.
who would it be?
I would love to hear from Dr. Zana Rangalova.
Okay, I'm not familiar.
She does some really fascinating research on non-monogamous relationships.
Oh, interesting.
It really challenges conventional norms, and I think it could spark some really thought-provoking conversations with your listeners.
Absolutely. Challenging those norms and making people think differently.
I love it. Okay, now moving on to the sample episode ideas.
Okay.
They've got Breaking the Ice, The Science of Desire, Navigating Consent, Exploring Sexual Health, and Kinks and Fantasies.
This is a really solid lineup,
It is.
and I think it covers a lot of important ground.
Yes.
And I love that navigating consent is right there
Yes.
in the mix early on.
It's so important.
It's such a foundational element of any healthy relationship.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground today. from brainstorming titles to dissecting themes and even dreaming up guest stars.
You've clearly put a lot of thought into this,
Well, thank you.
and I'm really excited to see where you take it from here.
I am too.
Just remember, this is an iterative process.
Yes.
Keep refining those ideas.
Yes. Stay curious and trust your instincts.
That is such great advice. All right, listeners. Well, that wraps up another deep dive. We hope you found this exploration helpful. And if you're thinking about starting your own podcast,
Yeah.
remember to stay curious and keep refining your ideas.
And don't be afraid to experiment.
Yes.
And define your unique voice.
And to our listener out there who sent in their ideas,
Yeah.
we are so excited for you and your podcasting journey. And remember, if you ever need to take another deep dive,
You know where to find us.
you know where to find us. All right, everyone, until next time, stay curious.